So I love flying at night, and this is my first long cross country with my new avionics. So I have a new Garmin ADS-B transponder, I have a new Garmin G5s, I have a Garmin GFC 500 autopilot, I got FlightStream for a Bluetooth access, and some other crap. So neat stuff. So I'm flying at night, and I'm letting all the new avionics fly the airplane. Part of my upgrade is I got all new LCD lights, backlights for my instruments, so I love that. Very easy to see my instruments. Anyway, flying at night, letting the autopilot fly, and enjoying it immensely because it's nice and cool up here at 4,500 feet. If you look at my previous YouTube videos, you'll see a number of videos related to me flying to Southern California. My younger daughter lives there with her family. I have two grandsons living in the Los Angeles area. So I fly into Whiteman. It's a nice little general aviation airport. A lot of traffic. There's a control tower there. And this last trip, because of the weather, it was difficult to find a nice VFR time interval where I could make it from Houston to Los Angeles. So I ended up departing Houston, Pearland Regional Airport, around sunset. Flew most of the flight at night till I got to Blythe, California. Got to see the sunrise at Blythe, and then flew in the morning sunlight from Blythe, California to Whiteman. It was an interesting and exciting and fun flight. So flying at night, the first major city I passed was Austin. I flew very near the Austin Bergstrom Airport, and the wind was relatively calm. Was not experiencing that much of a headwind, but it was between Austin and El Dorado that the headwind kicked in, and for most of the flight I had a 20 to 40 knot headwind. So this one was especially slow because of the strong headwinds. That was part of the reason I was flying at night, because in the daytime the winds were so strong and there was moderate turbulence, it would not have been a lot of fun to fly. Landed at El Dorado and refueled. Flying from El Dorado to Las Cruces, I had gotten a new weather briefing. And in the interim between when I got my very first weather briefing back in Pearland to landing at El Dorado, a number of AIRMETs popped up. So I will display those for you. You can pause the video if you want to read them. But there were 3 AIRMETs for moderate turbulence, and there were 3 AIRMETs for low-level wind shear. The low-level wind shear is not necessarily an issue unless you're low level, so I was flying at roughly 10,500 feet. In evaluating the AIRMETs, I decided I could fly at 12,500 feet. I had oxygen on board and I used all my oxygen. So by the time I finished using oxygen, there was just a little bit left before I got to the red line. But that allowed me to fly above the turbulence. So the 3 AIRMETs were intersecting geographies. There was an AIRMET relatively low. There was an AIRMET, I think, between, you can read the AIRMET. I don't have it in front of me, but I will display it when this is playing on YouTube. There was one from like 4,000 to 6,000 feet, and then there was one below 12,000 feet. So that's why I flew 12,500, and I didn't have any turbulence, just a very strong 40 knot headwind. So it took me a while to get to Las Cruces, and at the original arrival time, there was supposed to be low-level wind shear at Las Cruces, but because of the headwind, by the time I got to Las Cruces, the AIRMET was still in effect, so I was still very observant, but the wind was relatively, I think it was something like 11 knots going straight down the runway, so it was a relatively easy landing. Between Las Cruces and Blythe, I flew over Phoenix at night. Beautiful because it was early in the morning, very little air traffic. One of the nice things about flying at night is you're unlikely to get an emitter collision. because you can see all the airplanes. There were, believe it or not, at Phoenix, I think actually when I crossed over Phoenix, it might have been between 4 and 5 a.m., there were already student pilots out flying. Now, they were much lower than me. At that point, I think I had dropped down to 10,500, but the traffic was down at 2,500, 4,500. And I think it's so busy and there's so much training going on, it's probably wise and cool to get up and do your training early. So there were a number of aircraft that I assumed were doing training flying in the vicinity of the Phoenix airports. And I was trying to, I taught for 4 years at Arizona State University. I was trying to identify it in the darkness, and I was not all that successful, but I took some pictures and some videos. Then landing in Blythe was fairly uneventful. It was still kind of windy. When I took off from Blythe and flew over Palm Springs, it was a little blustery. I contacted air traffic control east of Palm Springs, got flight following. I'm flying in, and they're pretty much letting me fly at my own discretion. There was a layer at 4,500 feet in the Banning Pass. Banning Pass can be problematic. You can have very high winds in the Banning Pass. Got to the Banning Pass, I had to either descend to 3,500 or climb to 5,500. And so I got permission to descend. Went a little ways underneath that cloud layer and decided that was not going to work. Got permission from air traffic control to turn around and come back. And then air traffic control asked me what my intentions were. And I said, I'm going to climb above the cloud layer and look for an opening when I get near Whiteman. And as I got close to Burbank, it opened up and I descended, and actually, as luck would have it, I flew right over my daughter's house in the Eagle Rock area of Los Angeles. So that was pretty cool. And then had a fairly uneventful transition over Burbank into Whiteman and landed. Did my transient parking, good old Whiteman Airport, $5 a night tie-down fee, so on. So the night flying, not the most wonderful experience, but flying is always challenging and fun. So at least I have that to say about it.